All right, so we're on to episode 2 of the Communication Toolbox, and today I'm going to talk to you about some theory developed by an amazing psychologist who is a Canadian psychologist, that is Virginia Satir. And Satir is a really cool therapist who did a lot of systems work. So what that means is she was very interested in families and family dynamics. Through her interest in family and family dynamics, she started to develop some ideas about how we function as people. One of the analogies that Virginia would use is the analogy of the iceberg, and that we are all like an iceberg. So I'm going to try and zoom this in. I will make a meme of this and then I can put it below. But the idea with the iceberg is that on the surface is our behavior, and those are the things that people see. All of our actions and the sort of storyline, the day-to-day of the things that are happening for us. Underneath the surface is, our coping strategies. So those are the things that we perceive, or they're connected to our perceptions, I should say. But the coping is the methods that we have created to have a stance in the world around us. Underneath our coping is our feelings, and our feelings about feelings. So feelings are just, emotion words: joy, anger, fear, sadness, despair, hurt, panic. Those sorts of things would be our feelings. And then our feelings about feelings are our decisions about our feelings, which is really interesting to consider. So we have an emotion, and then we have an internal perception about that. What do I think about this feeling? I get mad. Is it okay for me to be angry? I get sad. Is it okay for me to be sad? And is it okay for me to let other people know about my emotions? It's a little bit interesting the deeper we go down. Perceptions. So these would be our beliefs, our assumptions, our mindset, our subjective reality. So this is our perceptions are more about our lens. This is the meaning that we make in the world around us. Then our expectations, what I believe or require of myself, of others, and the world around me. That's pretty loaded right now. Our exceptions are very challenged based on the global pandemic that we're all faced with. And then our yearnings. Our yearnings are really attached to our attachment and to our deep down desire for nurturing, acceptance, and caring. So these might be things like to be loved, to be lovable, to be accepted, to be validated, purposeful, meaningful, for freedom. Our yearnings are really having a hard time right now because many of the ways that we coped and behaved to soothe or avoid these deep down unmet things, we can't really do those in the same way while we're in social distancing. And deep down is the sense of self, our sense of our I am. This is just our spiritual, soulful core. Somebody might call it our essence. This might be where our beliefs about God and spirituality will rest. So with the iceberg then, what you can do is you could take a piece of paper and based on the meme that I'll put up later, you'll be able to write down each one of these categories in their order and do a little bit of what we call a telly chart, if you remember what that is. So we put each one of the terms in a category. So we might use the one, let me see here, behavior, or behavior, coping, perception, all these words in order. And then we want to break it into 2 categories to consider my behaviors that are healthy and helpful, and my behaviors that are negative and destructive. My coping stances that are healthy and helpful, my coping stances that are negative and destructive. As with feelings about feelings, as with perception, as with expectation, And it gets a little bit more philosophical when we get into our yearnings, as well as our sense of I am, our real sacred spiritual place. What I know about the universe and God and existence. So when you go through this activity of looking at the ways I'm doing healthy and helpful things or negative and destructive things, that's a really good self-reflection. If you are with your partner, this is a great discussion tool for you to talk about what's working and what isn't working, if you feel safe to be vulnerable like that. Now it's interesting because, again, this was a workshop that I developed years ago, and even Virginia Satir, I think a little bit differently about the progression of self, but I really appreciate her theories and her models. So it's very interesting to look back at the iceberg. I think there's a lot of good information in there for us. Now this other progression of self, I don't actually remember where I got this from. I'm pretty sure it's some leadership philosophy. It could be Zig Ziglar, it could be John Maxwell, I'm not quite sure. But this idea of the progression of self, and this is a little bit different than how I view progression of self in emotionally focused model. But what I like about it is it's really this idea of like, what do I think and feel about the world around me? What actions do I take? And as I continue to take the same actions over and over and over and over and over and over again, what habits am I creating? And what is the character that people are seeing in me? So this is a really interesting challenge for us when we're thinking about our communication. Repeated action creates habits which influence the character that people see in me. I think that's enough said just right there. That's really interesting. So I can create a meme of this one as well and put that up on our social media. So with the idea of the iceberg, I have a few simple tips on how you can melt your own iceberg and melt your partner's or people around you. So number one of the things we crave the most is to be understood. Taking time to consider who somebody else is, taking time to know their iceberg, to know their personality, to just know how they tick, that matters to people. Number two, supporting other people's strengths. When we see what's good about somebody else, tell them, let them know, see who they are, and take a moment to celebrate that. The other thing is share who you are. Open up. If there's a moment where you're like, nobody gets me, nobody understands where I'm coming from, that's a moment where you can be slow with yourself, gentle with yourself, and consider, what is it that I want them to know? And then the risk is finding an avenue to try and let people know who you are. Number four, remember that it's give and take. So when we looked at the wellness wheel, when we look at the scales, there is this vital balance that's happening between us and other people. It's a give and take. All we can do is take care of us though. I'm in charge of me. If I'm working hard to balance out the scale, then hopefully the other person will be doing their job. And if not, then I need to have that experience so that I can evaluate that. So just taking time to try and balance our differences and have acceptance for our differences. Number five, share responsibility. Make an effort, communicate your needs and wants, and ask about others' needs and wants. So we'll be going through another activity a little bit later on that helps to clarify some of those things. And I wrote on here, the final point is live, laugh, love. I don't know why I put that in there, but hey, right now, that's not gonna hurt us. Okay, you guys, take care, and thank you so much for joining me again. Bye.